We are ready here. I'm so glad to be back. I'm so thankful for Pastor Rob. When I met Pastor Rob there a couple of years ago, and he told me that he was from the Cumberland area, and he was a part of the New Covenant Church there in Cumberland, and then Pastor Glenn Capuchon, that you all remember, was here for a brief period. He then, once he retired, Glenn was a little closer, so he went down there. I guess it's on Cumberland, Flintstone area. But then I got to meet Rob a couple times, and Rich and I did at the annual conference. And he's a rather tall man, as you probably noticed, so he kind of sticks out a little bit. But he's such a warm person. So I was so thankful whenever I asked him if he was able, because I asked him last year, and unfortunately he was in Alaska. So it was kind of hard for him to be here and be in Alaska. So this year he was, yep, I'm here. So I'm so thankful he was able to fill in and bring that message last week while we were on vacation as well. So just keep him in prayer as he is moving to, I guess it would be the east coast side of Florida, if that makes sense, down in that direction. I don't think they quite did that yet, but they're working toward it. So today I want to take you on a little bit of a road trip that we were on. And I want you to see this from a biblical perspective too. So after about 1,000 miles, our annual road trip to Myrtle came to an end. It actually came to an end about 6 o'clock last evening when we said farewell to the Myrtle Beach sign, and we welcomed us back to the Maryland sign there on Interstate 81. And just because we wanted to, and we have been waiting so long to do so, we took the long way home. That way we could go across the Route 40 bridge. And it was wonderful. And I told Jessica, I said, get your camera out. You need to take a video of this. This is wonderful. So we took the long way home. After the long road trip, we took the long way home so we could go across the bridge. And it was wonderful. And I was telling Sharon earlier that our GPS yesterday took us a little bit different route home. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back. Maybe the GPS could tell us again. But we took a much different route, I must say. And I guess it was all about the same amount of time and distance. But we were off of 95. We went this other direction, and we went up through a different part of Virginia and a different part of North Carolina. I think we were near the Charlottes and Greenville area and things of that. And I remember we stopped in Danville, if you know where that is, and we had lunch there, and then we hit the road again. But it was a very scenic route, and it was actually very enjoyable. We got to see little towns and different places, and it was a really different experience. I'm glad our GPS kind of took us a different way home than what it normally does. So yesterday, we loaded up the Jeep, and we departed about 7:15 a.m. We had a goal. We wanted to leave by 7, and we did. So we were thankful for that. And then we started this long road trip home. But we really were content. We had sodas and a couple snacks in the bag. But Allison soon realized, Dad, this is never going to be enough snacks to get us home. We got to stop. So we stopped and we got some more chips, and she wanted some donuts and some candy, all this good stuff in the car ride home. And after a few stops, we stopped for lunch, and of course we had to get gas a couple times, we had to stretch a couple times. We finally pulled into the driveway, and it was like, okay, we're finally home again, back home after the long week away. But I had to have one more time I could wear my Hawaiian shirt. So I was like, I'm on vacation just for one more day. So I hope you're okay with me wearing this shirt today. But I wanted to tell you, we were talking about this in the hotel room when we were down at Myrtle because my mom and my grandmother, they flew down. And this year was a little different. It was our first year that Junior didn't go with us, but we had this big condo, and Mom and Grandma were there with us, and Jessica and Allison and I. And we got to talking about stories, and we attend a church down there in Myrtle Beach. It's a nice big Methodist church, and they have like a traditional service, and then they have a contemporary service. And we go to the contemporary worship service, and it's just a big open room, and they have a big praise band, and it's different, And we had a great service down there with their church. They got a new minister this year from last year, so it was nice to go to worship alongside of them. And we got to talking afterwards, and I said, Mom, you're not going to want to miss church when we get back. And she says, why? I said, because I'm going to tell the story. And she said, what story? And I said, the Ocean City story. And her eyes just got big, because she knows exactly the story that I'm going to tell. And we told Grandma, and she remembers, I think, about part of the story, so she was kind of helping to fill in the blanks a little bit. But so my question is to you, did you ever have a memorable, really memorable road trip that you remember even all these years later? Well, mine was about 35 or so years ago. I was trying to put a date on this. It had to have been in the early 90s. So this may be a little bit of a stretch, but not too far, because it was the early 90s when we went down on this road trip. And I remember growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of extra money to take vacations, but I remember this particular summer that my mom loaded up the car. It was actually a 1989 Ford Mustang. That's for my brother Elwin here, because I know he loves his Mustangs, and Robin. It was a 1989 Ford Mustang. And we were going to head down to Ocean City for a day trip, because we had no money for a hotel, but we could go down early in the morning, stay the day, return later that night, and still have a great time. Well, that was the plan for this year too. So I want you to picture this. A summer day, early in the morning, sometime in the early 90s. My mom loads the car with my brother Ryan and I, and we head toward the beach. What could possibly go wrong? Well, first we had to make a stop in Hagerstown to pick up another family member, my Uncle Mel. I wish my Uncle Mel could be here. But he isn't. He lives in Hagerstown now, but he's not here to tell this story, to help me to corroborate this. Because I'm going to tell you this, you're thinking, Randy, you're pulling our chain here. I swear to you, this is the truth, how it happened, as I recall. So we pick up Uncle Mel. And Ryan, you remember the old Ford Mustang, you had the hatchback. Remember that? And you could put a bed back there. And that's what we did. So Ryan and I, we put all our pillows in there, and we put blankets and all this. We made a bed in the back of the car, and that's where we were going to rest the whole big trip down to the beach, right? So we stop at Hagerstown, we pick up Mel, and he gets in the car. Well, Mel decides that he wants to bring someone else. Or maybe it was something else. I'll tell you here in a second. But I really wish he was here, because you would be like, yep, I can understand this, Pastor Randy. So Uncle Mel gets in, and what does he bring with him? His pet boa constrictor.
Oh, come on.
I kid you not. His pet boa constrictor snake. And he would wear this thing around his neck, and it would slither and all this stuff. And that was his pet. Okay. So now it's me, my brother Ryan, my mom, my Uncle Mel, and his pet boa constrictor going to Ocean City for the day. Okay. So here we go. And what happens next, I swear to you, church, is the truth. It happened. Somewhere between the Bay Bridge and Route 50 and Ocean City, Maryland, the snake is lost. We can't find this thing anywhere. We didn't stop. Where could this thing be? It's gone. It's in the car somewhere. We just don't know what happened. So finally, we pull in, and Mel starts tearing the car apart, only to find his pet snake curled up in the dashboard. Okay. So we get that all done. Yes, church, this really happened. Well, anyway, we're here. We're at the ocean now. We're going to have a great time now, right? The fun can begin. So we go out to the beach. And a little while later, Mom decides to go back to the car to retrieve something. So she walks up. What does she find? No car. The car is gone. After some investigational work, we found out that Mom parked there. She parked in a no parking zone. Okay. Remember I told you we didn't have a whole lot of extra spending money, right? So paying to have a car impounded or whatever was not part of the budget this day.
Oh, gosh.
And kids, RJ especially here, this was the early 90s. We didn't have Venmo. We didn't have PayPal. We didn't have all these things, right? So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to call Grandma. That's what we're going to do. And I'm thinking, I can't confirm this completely, but I bet we probably called her collect. Because we probably didn't have quarters for the machine either. I can't confirm that, but I'm sure we probably did. And somehow my grandmother gave her, and we were telling the story like last week, and she was like, I remember that. You called me for my credit card. So somehow, I don't know how, because they used to have those big machines, you remember those, and they did the credit card, you just couldn't put your numbers anywhere. But somehow they figured it out, and we got to go Mom got the card back, finally. And guess what? By that time, it was time to go home. So during this epic road trip, in less than 24 hours, we picked up Mel, we lost the snake, we got towed, we made it home, all to tell you this story 35 years later. And that's my epic road trip story
Yeah.
that I'll never forget.
Did you find the snake?
They found him in the dashboard. They found him.
Was he in the car when it was towed?
I think he wore that thing out on the beach, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah, he wore this thing.
Walked the boardwalk all day to get our car back.
So if you can imagine Mel, who had long hair, long beard, kind of looked like the Duck Dynasty guys, before the Duck Dynasty guys were kind of cool. That was Mel. And he's carrying this snake around everywhere. Yeah. That's my epic road trip story.
We went to the beach with him.
So as epic as my 90s road trip story was, it got me also thinking about a biblical road trip. Just as I will never forget my road trip story, this road trip we're going to take today was one that will never be forgotten, and actually it changed the course for human history, this road trip today. You see, at this point, Jesus has already gone to the cross. And the religious leaders at the time probably thought that the Jesus movement would die with Jesus. But instead, it was spreading like wildfire. The Sanhedrins didn't know what to do. They've already thrown the apostles in jail. They've already issued out threats. They've already tried to intimidate them, but nothing was stopping this early church movement. So they turned to another weapon. They turned to a man named Saul of Tarsus. A smart man, maybe even a man who was rising in their ranks. You see, he was a defender of traditions. He saw the Jesus movement as something that needed to be eliminated. It needed to be cut out and dealt with and gone. And at this time, with the death of Stephen still on everybody's mind, the early church was scattered. They were frantic. They were everywhere. They certainly weren't united at this point. They were scattered. And I often wonder if it's not because the stones that they used to kill Stephen were still scattered around as a reminder. Maybe even still have the blood of him on them to serve as a reminder so the church scatters. So I want you to turn with me to the book of Acts, chapter number 8, just to kind of get a feel for the early church at this time. You see, chapter 7 was the stoning of Stephen. But listen to this, beginning at verse 8. Actually, you've got to go up to chapter 7, I'm sorry. verse 57. Meanwhile, the witnesses laid their coats at the feet of a young man named Saul. You see that? So as they're stoning Stephen, they bring their coats and they lay them at Saul's feet. Now I want you to look at starting verse 8, chapter 8. And Saul approved of their killing of Stephen. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church in Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen, and they mourned for him deeply. But Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he drug off both men and women and put them in prison. So what was Saul doing? Where's he at? He stood there, didn't he? He was approving of the stoning of Stephen. He even held their coats for him while they did it. He was breathing in violence as if it was oxygen, like he needed to have that for his own well-being. And you see, Stephen's death becomes something that sparks his fury. So what does he do? Saul goes to the high priests. And he asks for letters. He asks for authority. He asks permission to hunt the believers even beyond Jerusalem. You see, he was not just satisfied enough with having control over the local people. He wanted them completely eliminated from the region, completely wiped away. This Jesus movement. It had to go. And guess what? He was willing to take the fight on the road. He was willing to take a road trip of his own. But you see, when he set out for this road trip, he didn't take his cool Jeep to Myrtle Beach like we did. He didn't even take his 1989 Ford Mustang to Ocean City like I did back in the 90s. He was on a road trip not for vacation, but he was on a road trip to stop the Jesus movement. He was on his way to hunt down men and women and take them as prisoners. That was his road trip idea. So now I want you to go to Acts chapter number 9, and we're going to see what happens. Just going to read the first two verses at the moment. Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. He went to the high priests and he asked them for letters to the synagogues in Damascus, so that if he found there to be anyone who belonged to the way, whether men or women, that he might take them as a prisoner to Jerusalem. So here we see Saul. He's still breathing out threats of murder. He's still wanting them to be scattered, doesn't he? He's not irritated at this point, is he? He wants them gone. He wants his whole identity is built upon eliminating the Jesus movement. And look what he has behind him for this road trip, okay? He's got authority from the high priests. He goes and he asks them, give me letters. That way I can go find these people who are of the way. The Bible says of the way. I want to go find those people so we can bring them back and we can arrest them. And I don't know if this is a picture. This is probably a version of maybe what it looked like. But that's what he was asking for, coming out with this letter. Almost like as if he's grinning. Like, yes, you've given me what I need to bring these people back to here. And to be honest with you, I don't think it mattered if it was dead or alive. He just wanted the people to understand that he was authority. He had the letters. His heart was so full of rage. He sat there and watched them stone Stephen. And it says he held their coats for him. And then when he's about to die, and he's dead now, he looks over and he sees a dead body with stones and blood and all this. And he approves of it. This man's heart was full of rage. Can you picture him for a second in your own mind? Think about this for a moment. What happens on this road trip next that Saul took would change Saul, and it would also change history forever. I want you to think about this for a moment. We have this man named Saul. He's definitely a loose cannon. I think would be an understatement. He approved of Stephen's death. He held their coats. He watched them stones fly. He got papers from the authorities to bring these new followers of Jesus back to Jerusalem. I'm sure dead or alive. Probably didn't matter to him. Listen, he's not going to Damascus to make new friends. He's not going there to debate them. He's going there to destroy them. And what would happen next what would have happened if what happened next doesn't happen? Would the whole Jesus movement just ended right there? Would it have died out? Would the whole movement have been crushed? Would the early church been scattered far beyond repair? Would the missionary journeys never happen? Would the Gentile church never be born? Would we even be here today at Parkhead worshiping Jesus because the movement would have died before it ever got to us? You see, Saul was not a minor threat. Saul was the single greatest danger that the early church would have ever faced. But what happens next? God happens next, doesn't it? And Saul's road trip just got a little more memorable. Acts chapter 9, verses 3. As he neared Damascus on his road trip journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him, and he fell to the ground, and he heard a voice say unto him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. I am Jesus who you are persecuting, he replied. Now get up and go to the city, and you will be told what you must do. You see, God does not leave the future of his church in Saul's hands, does he? It says a light fell down from heaven, and it must have been like a spotlight, I can only imagine, during that Middle Eastern day, when a light shined down. And it was so radiant that it knocked Saul on his behind and made him fall. Could you imagine? Here Saul is on this journey. He's just walking along, whistling his favorite tune or something. And all of a sudden he sees a light. And all of a sudden he finds himself on his rear end. You see, Saul doesn't fall because he's clumsy. He fell because glory hit him like a freight train. That's what happened, I believe. And then he hears his name, not once, twice. He says, Saul, he hears a voice, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? You know, sometimes I wish the Bible had an audible version, like someone had a tape recorder taping this, because I say those words kind of calmly. Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Something tells me God got Saul's attention with a little bit more authority, with a little bit more bass in his voice, if you will. I remember doing that as a young parent. If you put some bass in your voice, kids will pay attention a little bit more. You know? RJ, is that true? No? I tried. But I can only wonder what God's voice sounds like here. We know God's a loving God. We know he has love for me. We know he has love for you. We know he has love for Saul. But something tells me God's authoritative voice is what was heard here. When he says, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Because you see, the voice Saul hears is the voice of the risen Christ. That's the voice he hears. Why are you persecuting me? He doesn't ask, why are you persecuting them? He doesn't ask, why are you persecuting the church? What he asks is, why are you persecuting me? You see, Jesus puts himself in the midst of all this persecution because he understood that if you're attacking him, you're attacking me. If you're attacking him, you're attacking the church. He understood that, doesn't he? And he puts himself right in the middle of it. And then Saul, who thought he was defending God, now realizes he was actually attacking him, doesn't he? And he only asked one question. Probably the only question that could come to his mind at that very moment. Who was speaking? And his answer, and the answer would change history forever, wouldn't it? He says, I am Jesus speaking. I am Jesus. You know, the one who Saul thought was dead was alive, speaking to him. The one that he thought was a fraud, he now sees as Lord. The one who Saul tried to erase is now the one standing in his path. You see, this is not a detour to Saul's plan. No, no, no. This is a divine takeover of Saul's heart. Because we read that a little earlier. He wrote a letter years later. What did he say? I've been reconciled. I've been made new again. What was God doing here? I believe he was protecting a promise. He made a promise years before a man named Saul ever came onto the picture, didn't he? And he said, I'm going to make you a nation of many people. He's protecting a promise. And Saul wasn't going to be in control of the church, was he? God said, no. No. Why do you persecute me? Why do you persecute the church? Why are you persecuting these people? So he changed his heart, knocks him on his butt. And then I love what he tells him next. He says, well, get up. Get up. Go to the city, and then you're going to be told what you're going to do. Interesting. Interesting, isn't it? Get up, go to the city, you're going to be told what to do. Because think about this. This man, Saul, came to Damascus on a road trip under his own authority. He was going to tell people what's going to happen next, doesn't he? He was the one who was going to hold people accountable to his standard. But now he enters Damascus under someone else's control. Get up, stand up, I'll tell you what you're going to do next, he tells them. The man who came in to arrest others is now arrested himself, but by grace. By grace. You see, this is not just Saul's conversion. This is God protecting the future of the church. You see, God steps in when the stakes are the highest. He refused to let the gospel die on the Damascus road that day. Look at these. There's maybe a rendering. I love this next part. I love the whole story, but I love this next part too. Listen how it ends. Verse 7. The men traveling with Saul stood there speechless. That's interesting. What they just saw, I think I'd probably be speechless too. It says they were speechless because they heard the sound, but they did not see anyone. Saul got up from the ground, but when he opened his eyes, he could see nothing. So they led him by the hand into Damascus. And for 3 days he was blind and did not eat, or he did not drink anything. So you see, these men who were with Saul, they were stunned. It says they heard something. They heard a voice maybe. They saw a sound. They heard a sound. They heard a thunderous presence, but they didn't see nobody. They don't know what happened. They don't know what happened to Saul next. They don't know what to do next. But they pick him up. And when Saul rises from the ground, everything is dark. He opens his eyes, and the world that he once knew is now also dark. Think of this guy for a second. He comes into the city under his own authority, with the authority of the church actually to have these letters. And now he tried to enter them as a conqueror, but now he leaves as a dependent. He now has to be held by the hand, almost like he's a child. I guess so much for that plan. You see, Saul's road trip story was very dramatic, explosive, even history altering. Saul's story ends in darkness today, unable to see, unable to move. But Jesus isn't done yet. Jesus doesn't just knock Saul down. He draws himself closer to him, doesn't he? Saul, like us, and which will lead us to next week, we all just need a little Jesus.
Amen.